Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. Our next guest has been working to cultivate empathy and foster understanding for the LGBTQ plus community, not just during Pride Month, but all year long. So here to share some tips on how we can practice active allyship and offer a supportive environment, we welcome back motivational speaker, trans advocate, and author of Madoodle, Dr. Elijah Nicholas. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be back with you all today.
We're excited to see you. Happy to talk about this during Pride Month. Very important, but as we mentioned, this applies all year long, and it can be anyone. So let's talk about being an ally, because all of us can do the work to better support LGBTQ plus people in our community.
Absolutely. Our allies are so critically important to our movement right now. And it's important, there's a few things that our allies can do to help us out, that being the LGBTQIA plus community. The first thing that is so important is educating yourself on the terms, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and asexual plus community, understanding the terms and understanding the current bills and legislation that's going on today. Because what we want to do is make sure that we're up to date also on pronouns. Pronoun usage is so important. And my nieces and nephews keep me current on the most recent pronoun usage. And it changes. It's something that, is ever evolving. Language evolves. So we want to make sure that we're always on top of that. And then the next thing is supporting us during the voting time and making sure that we don't have and we have anti-discrimination policies in school, in workplaces, to make sure that everyone is safe, children and adults alike.
And we've got to listen and amplify the voices that need to be uplifted a little bit more too.
Absolutely. Listen to the trans voices. This is Pride Month, so there's been a lot of us moving around the country. We were in DC recently, and one of the things that we were talking about was the trans Bill of Rights. And Senator Murphy and Representative Jayapal introduced this Trans Bill of Rights just last year in 2023. And this is actually a resolution so that we hold the federal courts accountable to making sure that our trans and non-binary citizens of the United States have access to adequate health care and education and technology. So those are all things that our allies can do to help us move forward.
It is a pivotal time with a lot of real world implications with all that legislation happening right now. Let's talk about parents and some things that parents can do to be supportive, which really begins in the same place of educating ourselves.
Absolutely. Education is key. And that's one of the reasons, we'll talk about it here, is that's one of the reasons that I wrote my children's book. Parents always want to be up to date with what's going on. Number one, because you don't want to wait until your child comes home from school and ask you what a certain pronoun means, or what gender identity means, or what gender expression means. So educating yourself in advance is really good, because it gives you the opportunity to be prepared for questions as they arise.
You're right. I think a lot of times we as parents find ourselves, I don't know the exact correct answer, but the answers are there. You might have to do a little research, but the information is available. And we also have to focus on creating a safe space in our home as well.
Absolutely. Creating a safe space is so important. You want to make sure that your child, or whether it's a teenager or a young adult, make sure that they feel safe and they feel like they can come and talk to you about anything, right? And I know that, parenting can be a difficult thing, right? Anyway, so when you add gender identity and gender expression to it, you want to make sure that the home environment, the spaces that you go to, the libraries, everything is safe, so children feel like they can bring these things up to their parents.
And going off of that, validating and affirming the experiences and the feelings that your child expresses, that you don't want to negate anything that they're bringing to the table.
Absolutely. Validate, validate, validate. And that is so important because, for example, one of the things that I often get asked from parents is about non-binary or gender neutral kids, right? And they may use one name one day and they use another name another day. So it's important for parents to understand that that realm, that range there, right? And the name might change. And making sure that you validate the name and validate the pronouns as they evolve with the kids is very, very, very important.
Yeah, we all change and evolve as we grow up, and that's just one part of it. Different kids have different ways of expressing that. And again, listening, always listening.
Listen, 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 and listen actively. My nieces and nephews help me to understand that listening without the intent to respond is so important. And sometimes we can, when we're listening, we receive and we hear information, especially if it's a new name or a new pronoun, and right away we're ready to respond. But I want to encourage parents to just try to be still, try to take deep breaths, and then come from a space of love and make a conscious decision to respond when appropriate.
Let's talk about your book, because that's a great kind of conduit for a lot of these things that we're talking about, these themes of love and acceptance and family bonds too.
Yes, indeed. So I wrote Madoodle at the beginning of my gender transition. I'm 6 years in now, and I started in 2018, roughly. And I wrote Madoodle because I was like, how am I going to have these conversations with my amazing nieces and nephews? And so I wanted to create a book that was based on empathy and compassion and love and understanding. And all of these things are so important as we raise our children and our families in this day and age.
You have such a great perspective, and really appreciate you taking the time to share with us. It was great catching up with you.
Always great catching up with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Again, Dr. Elijah's book is Madoodle, and we'll have more information on our website at katu.com.